Hello, my name is Cindy Snide, the Marketing Director for Revolution Group. It's my pleasure to welcome you to the second installment of our webinar series, Revolutionize the Supply Chain. Today's discussion will be Lineside labeling, solid systems that stick. We will be recording this session to post on our website, so if you'd like to revisit or share today's information, we'll send that link out for you to do so. On today's agenda, after we have a brief introduction to Revolution Group, our speaker will be discussing minimum process requirements, the current state of Lineside labeling systems and common challenges, future state Lineside labeling systems and benefits, and PLC integration. At the end, we will have a Q&A session. So at any point through the presentation, if you have a question, please just type it into the control panel on your screen, and we'll do our best to answer all the questions at the end. For those of you who don't know us, Revolution Group is a Central Ohio-based technology solutions provider founded in 1995. On our staff, we are privileged to have ERP implementation specialists and custom developers with years of manufacturing and supply chain experience. Our partnerships with Plex, Salesforce.com, Adaptive Planning, and Microsoft allow us the expertise and resources necessary to facilitate our customers' growth. We've been extremely successful in helping our customers leverage technology to revolutionize their supply chains and improve their business competitiveness. Our speaker today is one of the biggest contributors to those successes. She has been with Revolution Group for 13 years and has been in the industry for over 20. Not only has she worked with various ERP systems, she also has been deeply involved in the supply chain for most of that time. At this time, it is my pleasure to introduce Revolution Group Senior Project Manager, Karen Patterson.
Thank you very much, Cindy, and welcome to everyone. Before we get started, I want to ask, Cindy, are you having any trouble seeing the proper screen?
I see it just fine.
Okay.
If anyone else is having problems, if they could just message me, that would be great.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you. On our call today, we will also have Tony Kazmarek, who is the president of Coors Engineering. Tony is one of our favorite partners whose firm specializes in PLC integration, and he's going to be available at the end of the call to answer questions as well. Thanks, Tony. So today we have current customers who are already on a path with Lineside labeling, and we hope to introduce you to some new ideas today. We also have some new faces, and so for those folks, I'd like to give you just a little bit of background. Here at Revolution Group, we have worked in a variety of ERP systems in the Honda supply chain for about 20 years. We've watched initiatives evolve, and we have written various add-ons to deal with Lineside labeling challenges. We've also helped to usher in some new ideas into the supply chain. So let me just say that we've been at the forefront of a concept that seems like it should be so simple, putting a label on a box. That is, until we get to the minimum process requirements for putting that label on the box. Now, the minimum process requirements are stated by the OEM, and in our case, we're speaking about the Honda supply chain. And those minimum process requirements state that we must automate the creation of container labels using the production line, PLC if it's available, or a demand management or ERP system to ensure that the label matches the part. Sounds easy enough. We must generate the labels as the last step in the manufacturing process. Seems reasonable, although oftentimes it is politically and culturally not treated as a step in the manufacturing process. Often it is treated as an afterthought or something that maybe should happen or be the responsibility of the shipping department. And there should be no batch printing of labels, no batch printing and taking labels to the plant floor and putting them beside the associate to put on. Unfortunately, most of the out-of-the-box systems that we've seen so long in the supply chain are designed to do this batch printing of labels very well. So we have our label. Looks simple enough, simple container label, until we start to dig into some of the details, as I'm sure many of the folks on the call have done. We start to then see the challenge when we dig a little bit deeper. A simple part number needs to be our customer part number, obviously. Do we get this part number from our ERP system? Should we get it from our shipping system? Is it the same as our internal part number? Usually not, sometimes so. Could we potentially have a different customer part number based on which customer or which plant we happen to be shipping it to? Sometimes we run into that as a challenge. And then how do we deal with our service parts, which are substantially the same part as our mass production part, but we do need to have a different part number on the label, or sometimes even a different label format. This particular label doesn't have any data on it in this section, but what about color? Are we getting that factor from our ERP or from our shipping system? Are we relying on our operator to tell us the color of the parts so that we can accurately put that on our label, or are we potentially have the opportunity to integrate with a vision system to get the color? The engineering level of the part. Of course, this is the customer's engineering level, probably not our internal engineering level. And are we managing a clean and correct cutover in our labeling creation process to get the correct engineering label on the parts that are going out the door? Again, do we get this from our ERP system or from our shipping system? Quantity. Gosh, that seems easy. The quantity must match the quantity that is in the container. Well, who are we relying on for this information? Are we relying on our operator to count the parts and to give us the correct container quantity? A lot of times we see that we have the operator and then we have a full verification of these container counts to make sure that the label's correct. Do we have a standard pack quantity that we can work with? A machine counter potentially, or a PLC integration? What about when we have scrap at the line? How do we deal with that? How do we deal with making sure that that quantity that's on the label matches just the good parts that have gone in? Do we have the opportunity to integrate with a weigh scale? And again, sometimes we see that the quantity on the label even needs to be a different standard pack quantity based on the customer or the plant that we're shipping it to. Not so simple anymore. Now we have a supplier ID and the serial number. This supplier ID and serial number has to be passed to our shipping system because it needs to go out on our ASN back to the customer. Is that serial number used in our ERP system anywhere as well, and is it valuable anywhere other than shipping? Probably should be. In a lot of cases, it is only valuable in shipping and not traceable anywhere else. And then, of course, overriding all of this is the continual minimum process requirement. We have to get all of these things right, but we can't batch print our labels, and we need one label printed line side. So, need I say more? What we see in the marketplace a lot of times when we have the opportunity to visit with customers and look at systems that they currently have running and have built to manage this line-side labeling challenge, we often see that they have an ERP system that they use for scheduling, for production, and for managing their inventory transactions. Of course, that ERP system is also used for accounting and all the traditional pieces that ERP brings along with it. It has a database of parts, a part master in that database. So that we can have our operators participate on the floor and that we can get those labels printed out on the plant floor where they need to be, we often see some variety of a third-party MES or manufacturing execution system that is bolted on to the ERP system so that we can have an operator interface. In order to generate the label itself and have it designed such that it meets our customer requirements in terms of their format, we have a third-party label designer attached to the whole process as well. We have a third-party SCADA server to manage any PLC integration that we potentially have. And then we have our shipping and EDI system where that label data needs to reside so that we can send it in the ASN. Neglected to put on this screen, but of course we have a number of custom applications that are represented by the Band-Aids and the bolts that are needed to be put in place to tie all of these pieces together. And all of that in an effort to produce a single label Lineside. With all of these systems knitted together, usually we're meeting the goal of getting those Lineside labels out, but it comes at a very delicate cost, and oftentimes we wonder when we get to the end of the line, how did we actually get that correct label? Or a better question is, when things went wrong, where did they go wrong in the process? And so what are the real challenges with these kinds of systems? Well, there are a number of them. Oftentimes it feels like we're continually pushing the rock up the hill in terms of Lineside labeling and continuing to move toward perfection in this process. In a lot of cases, it's interesting as we visit a variety of suppliers that we see the same teams of people recreating the wheel. They all have the same fundamental pieces. They all have the same fundamental goal, but they continue to have to build tool sets to rebuild the process to get an accurate label. So we're all out there in our own plants recreating the wheel to solve the problem. We're working with inconsistent databases. Usually our shipping database and our ERP system at a minimum have both have part masters that have to be maintained and synced up, and so we have inconsistent sets of data. As we saw from that last slide, we have many, many potential points of failure where this system can break down, and that is often related to the fact that we have different products in our plant that go through versions and upgrades that we have to keep up with and maintain, which can be very difficult to do. Overall, what seems like a very simple process can actually end up being technically very challenging, particularly if we bring PLC integration into the mix, into our Lineside labeling process. It requires a number of different specialists in the plant to make this occur. And then again, this should be viewed as the last step in the manufacturing process and should be engineered into the process in such a fashion. However, it usually is not. This idea of Lineside labeling is usually left into the department, the IT department, and it's kind of usually, often dealt with as an afterthought rather than being engineered into the process. So over the course of the past few years, we have been working with some customers using some different tool sets and enabling those customers to start to get a grip on the Lineside labeling challenges in some consistent ways. And so the first thing that we see customers do is to move to a fully integrated ERP system. One that includes not just their traditional ERP system, but also has an integrated manufacturing execution system, labeling system, and also shipping system. That eliminates our first issue with having redundant data in multiple data points, and it also removes the issue of needing to have these systems knitted together on the plant floor. One of the systems that we see used out there as a fully integrated system is Plex Online by Plex Systems. And I put in into our PowerPoint here a screenshot of, this is probably one of the screens in Plex that best illustrates the integrated nature of the application. This screen is the screen that is used on the plant floor by the operator as they are producing parts. And so this is a first step that we see people take in solving some of their line-side labeling challenges, is integrating, using Plex and integrating at the plant floor with the control panel screen. I do want to take just a minute to look at some of the different areas of the control panel screen so that you can see the integrated nature. If we look in the first upper left-hand corner, we see that we're working at a particular press on the plant floor, press 16. In the setup section, we see the part that we're making. Now, this is not a traditional Honda part number. This would be using a different convention, but could just as easily, we could be using a Honda part number that you would see on the screen. You see that the operator does get a visual picture of what that part should look like, and we're working from a job, which obviously shows that we have a schedule behind the scenes here. We are collecting work center status at the control panel. In a first step, this can be managed by the operator, letting the system know when the work center goes into various statuses by coming to the control panel and clicking on the box. In addition, this work center status can be set by the PLC integration, which we'll talk about in a minute. Plex has in it a complete quality management system, and so you see check sheets that are integrated into the process. This is important not only from a basic functionality in the sense that we're gathering quality information while we're making the parts, but this can also be taken advantage of in the PLC integration process, because if the operator is not performing their quality checks, as you see here, there's a quality check that's required every 10 minutes, and this one is past due. Through PLC integration, you can cause a number of things to happen, including causing the machine to shut down if that is your desire. So integrating not only quality into a first level of the system, but also pulling it into PLC integration. You see that we're keeping track of the operators that are producing these parts. We do have a complete log of all of the activity. This machine settings section on the control panel, if you are PLC integrated and if you choose to use this functionality, Plex can store the required machine settings to produce a particular part. And so with the PLC integration, you can, when you start a job from the schedule, you can request that the machine settings, the appropriate machine settings, get pushed over to the PLC. So we're talking really about two-way communication here, not just the PLC pushing information to Plex, but Plex also pushing information to the PLC. We have some bulletin board area. This is just for basic good communication with the operator on the plant floor. We are integrated with the maintenance system, the gauge system, and we have the ability to view attachments right on the Plex control panel. So if you have some setup instructions and those things, they can be added directly as attachments and viewed by the operators. Now, to produce a label on from the Plex control panel without PLC integration, the operator would click in this area of the control panel, and they would be presented with a screen that looks something like this. There are various configurations of it, but essentially you see up at the top source material that's required to make the part. So there are two different source components that are required to make the part. The operator records how many pieces they have produced, and they are going to record production and say container full. When they say container full, the label printer that's attached to the system that's sitting right beside their work center line is going to print the appropriate label for that part. So a single system with integrated manufacturing execution system and label printing looks something like this. We do have our machine and the PLC up here independent currently of the Plex system. We still have the operator who is interacting with Plex and the PC on the plant floor. And then also the label printer. So the operator interacts with the screen when he has a container full. The Plex screen is sending HTML through a web page. I did not mention earlier, but Plex is a software as a service model. It is completely in the cloud. So we're going across HTML to a web page through some stored procedures and interacting with the database to record that production and send the data back out and print the label. Now, just with the implementation of these systems, we see that we have solved some of our issues. We have now moved to a system where rather than recreating the wheel in every plant, we're using a system that is configurable, highly configurable, but we are using proven methods that have been implemented by customers just like us for line-side labeling. So we're not out there trying to recreate the wheel every time we need to make a change. We're using proven methods. We have moved to a single database, which helps to control the data that's going on the label. We have a much more controlled structure on our plant floor. And because of the method that Plex uses to roll out modifications to the application, we never have to deal with a big upgrade to the system. They roll out modifications to the system every day, and they are controlled by switches and settings. So we don't have to go through this continual process of upgrades and all of the challenges that that brings with it. Just one example of a supplier that moved to a system like this even without PLC integration. They were struggling with and averaging about 40, this is an average of about 40 mislabels in a year prior to moving to a system that looked like this. In the very year that they moved to this system, they went to 2 mislabels in that year. So you can see that that can have a significant impact not only in streamlining and reducing cost, but also in improving your labeling situation with the OEM. Now in this situation, we do still have a negative in the sense that we are relying on our operator to give us the correct information to go on that label. So now in the step 2 process, we see customers that are bringing PLC integration into their process. You see here that it can live in the same factory where we have some work centers that are not PLC integrated, and we have some work centers that are PLC integrated. So from the press to its PLC, through this product, called Plex ML. This is a product that is created by Coors Engineering, and this product actually resides inside of your plant. This is monitoring and set up to deal with the transactions and understand the transactions that are coming from your PLC, translating those to Plex transactions and working now through Plex web services to go up to the stored procedures and into the database, back down and producing a label. So now we have brought machine control as well to the process. Just a little bit about how this works, and so you can see that it is fairly straightforward. On your plant floor, you would have your network of PLCs, and those are interacting with the PlexML server inside your plant, which resides on your network along with all of your other PCs. This is translating and sending the transactions out through your corporate firewall, out to the World Wide Web, and to the Plex web services and the business transactions. So it is interacting through the web with Plex. Over here on the right, we also see, just as a service, that cores can maintain this and help to maintain your PlexML installation remotely. The same way that you're getting out, they can come in and help to maintain, so you don't have to have a ton of expertise inside your plant in order to maintain your PlexML server. So what do we see? This is the important piece, right? What are some of the common points of validation to getting to that correct label? So now that we have the machines talking to the ERP system, we can do things like making sure that the setup of the machine in the PLC matches the job that's running in Plex, which then translates to the part number that's printing on the label. So we can validate that the job that we're selecting in Plex matches what's actually being produced at the press or the whatever machine we're working at. We can do things like making sure that the last part met the quality specifications. If it did not meet the quality specifications, we do not add it to that standard pack quantity. Did we just reach a standard pack quantity? If we just reached a standard pack quantity, let's go ahead, record production, and spit out that label so that the operator can put it on the container. As I mentioned before, did the operator complete their quality check sheets? If not, let's take some action, appropriate action, either change the work center status or even shut down the machine if that makes sense. And we can also interact with vision systems. Was the last part that was produced the correct color or shape or weight to be consistent with the part that's running on the control panel, all to ensure now that we have the correct part at the correct color, at the correct revision, and at the correct standard pack quantity to meet our customer requirements. In addition, and I don't want these points to go unnoticed, the PLC integration is very, very valuable, but also just in a pure Plex implementation, by producing that label on the plant floor, we know a lot about the parts that were produced at that time. We know the operator that was signed on to the control panel to make those parts, and we also know whether he was authorized to use that work center. We know which materials, not what kind of material, but we know specific serial numbers of material that were used to create that container for traceability purposes. We, of course, know when the parts were produced, when the label was printed. By using the PLC integration to maintain our work center statuses, we can drive some very accurate OEE measurements, which it's often difficult to get accurate measurements of work center status. And how much downtime did that machine record? Of course, this means, you know, there's much, much more, but I just wanted to pull those things out to make sure that they were apparent. So we do have a short video of a process like this in production. I'm going to explain all of what's going on. We actually have just a little clip that's going to show a container being completed and the container label printing out. The screen that you're going to see in this video is actually was created by Coors Engineering. This customer is using Plex fully, and they also have a Plex control panel running, but they wanted a screen that would show even more information that's coming directly from the counters on the machine. So the screen that is in this video is the kind of customized screen that was created by Coors. Off to the side that you don't see is also a Plex screen that's running. So in this, when the counter on the machine indicates in conjunction with Plex that they have hit standard pack quantity for this part for this customer, the container label is printed and production is recorded in Plex. In addition, we are keeping track of the number of containers that are on the pallet. These are small, these are not big racks, these are small containers. So when the pallet is full, according to the system, the machine is stopped so that the pallet can be moved away. The operator comes over and prints either the master or mixed label, whichever one it is, and then the system resets the container counter. In addition, when the operator records scrap in Plex, we're doing a transaction the other direction such that the machine counters are updated to deduct the scrap so that we're continually counting good parts. And they also are recording the machine status in Plex to keep track of for OEE purposes. So I'm going to just run this video here. Okay, so you see that the machine actually didn't even stop in that instance. Production was recorded and the label was printed out, and the machine just kept on going right directly with the next container. So what are some of the costs that are involved in moving to a system like this? Well, if it is done with Plex Online, as your primary ERP system, which Plex is a fully integrated ERP system. It is a SaaS model hosted in the cloud, multi-tenant with subscription pricing. So there is a monthly subscription price to using Plex. That means that there is no big upfront price to use and license the application, and it is unlimited user pricing as well. And then there is the cost of any implementation or system conversion that goes along with it. The Plex ML, the Coors Plex ML product, has a very reasonable flat rate for the software that also includes your initial setup and training. They have designed their application. It's very graphical, very easy to use, and they actually build it with the intent that the customer configure it after the initial setup. So they go through a pretty extensive training process with you and get you and your team to a position where you can continue to add work centers and make changes to it after that. Of course, as we illustrated, they are available also to come on and help as needed. And then, of course, you have the cost for any hardware, PCs, label printers, and wireless on the plant floor, and potentially any upgrades that you might need to your PLCs in order to do this kind of integration. So benefits that customers see, they have moved to streamlined, modernized systems that, as you can see from all of our examples and illustrations, you could see how that would significantly reduce your internal costs and your internal pain points for dealing with line-side labeling. These customers now have the ability to meet the minimum process requirements and also to keep up with the changing marketplace, which can be very challenging as software systems change and also as the customer requirements change and grow. And of course, lowered delivery index points due to mislabel issues, which is very, very significant to the Tier 1 supplier. A last benefit that I'm not going to expand on today, but one that I hope that you'll join us for on our next webinar is true serialized inventory, which will highlight the real benefits of a true serialized inventory system versus a bucketed lot control inventory system. So with that, if we can be of assistance to you in your current environment in moving your line-side labeling capabilities forward, we would love to help. You can contact our Business Development Manager, Sam Hanna, and here is his contact information, and he can get you in touch either with myself or with Tony Kazmarek at Coors Engineering. Please just let us know if we can be of any help. And with that, if you have any questions, I think Tony is on the line. I might have to interpret for Tony. There he is. I hear him now. So if you have any questions for Tony or I just want to open it up for any questions.
I do have a few questions that have been sent to me, Karen, so I'll tell you what they are. And I think that Tony is on the line.
He is. I just heard him laugh.
Okay, good. The first question that I see here is, can you help us with PLC integration and line-side labeling without changing our ERP system?
And the answer to that is yes. I actually am going to turn that over to Tony, if you can help address that, Tony.
Sure. PlexML, the product PlexML was designed specifically to integrate new and legacy systems into Plex, specifically, as Karen mentioned, functions within the Plex control panel. We've spent years working with Plex engineers and the programmers and the project managers, as well as with our customers, to create that solution. So I don't want to say it's a completely canned solution, but we have a lot of tools that are basically off the shelf for applications that are native to Plex and Plex Online. So in that case, it's designed for very rapid integration. Outside of Plex into other ERP systems, the tool sets that we're working with are very open architecture and very non-proprietary. So we do have the ability to work with in-house systems that are already existing that we may need to either tie into Plex or just address specifically, some of the functions that we're talking about here today. But it's really on a case-by-case basis on what it will take to integrate into systems outside of the Plex system.
Okay, another question that we have, we do work for various OEMs. What label formats can you handle?
Yeah, actually, I know in the presentation that I did have one Honda label format, and then I had a very generic label format indicated there. Plex can actually have a whole library, so whatever OEM you work with, that label format is tied to the customer part, and we can definitely control and use any label format that you need.
Okay, great. I have one more question, unless I get a few more here. Much of our equipment is very old. Is there any way to work with that?
Tony, I'd like to ask you to handle that question.
Sure. When we originally sat down and designed PlexML, really one of our goals was to make sure that we could preserve customers' legacy systems. One of the ways that we do that is we use an industry standard called OPC protocol. And OPC protocol is capable of basically talking to hundreds of different makes and models and protocols. So basically, I don't want to say in 100% of the plants that we've worked in, we can integrate every piece of equipment, but it's well into the 90% plus. For equipment that's too old or too proprietary, we've often recommended kind of using a small, cost-effective microcontroller. So what we can do is there's quite a few solutions that you can just buy off the web that for a couple $100 we can bring in a few critical points. Points like your running, your idle, fault, stroke counts. So we can get kind of a core group of information from a controller and still get that up to Plex to be able to track OEE and still be able to trigger a label print based on standard production packs and those types of things. And then finally, there's some systems at customer sites where we've had to talk to third-party and even home-built controllers and databases. So it's really on a case-by-case basis, but in pretty much zero of our implementations have we had to have customers buy new hardware at significant cost. So we do everything that we can to preserve the legacy infrastructure.
Okay, I think that's all the questions that we have for now. So I want to say thank you, Tony, so much for joining us today and hoping filled some questions. And Karen, thank you for presenting. To everyone else that was on the call here attending today, I appreciate your time. I hope that you've gotten some great takeaways. And if you have any questions, please feel free to contact Karen or Tony or Sam Hanna here at Revolution Group. I appreciate your time and for spending time on the call, and if we can help you, please give us a call, and please join us for our next seminar next month. Thank you, and have a great day, everyone.
Thank you.